Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today, this is a video I've been waiting an extremely long time to get out for you guys. This video is, I'm hoping, going to be one of my bigger videos on the channel because this is something that the NHL, if you're newer to the NHL, you don't know the recent history of the NHL, or you just, maybe you know, but you just didn't know how deep, how long you could talk about this 2015 NHL draft. That is where we're going to look at today. We're going to go back in the time machine, back to 2015 in Sunrise, Florida, where the Florida Panthers were hosting the 2015 NHL draft. And a lot of things happened at this draft. I'm wearing the Bruins jersey today. You're going to understand that when we get into it. But this draft, with just a few draft picks, has completely changed the NHL. And I want to preface that. And again, it may seem like an over-exaggeration. It may seem like, he's just kind of making more, glitter and dust out of this. But this is the draft. When you look at today's NHL, a lot of really the teams that have been good, a lot of that is contributed to this very draft. Now, all the drafts are important, obviously, that is to be expected. But this 2015 draft was something different. And I'm going to explain that to you in today's video. So let's go to the spring. We're going to start off with the spring of 2015. And this was the year where the Buffalo Sabres had blown up the organization. They had traded Thomas Vanek not too long prior, right? This was around that time. They had traded him to the Islanders for Matt Molson. That didn't work out. They were making a couple weird moves, and they were blowing up the entire team. Any player that was good in 2015 ended up leaving the Buffalo Sabres. They were tanking. They were going for what was the prized first overall pick selection from the Erie Otters of the OHL. Anybody know who that is? Yes, it is. It is the next generational talent other than Sidney Crosby. The way they were talking about this prospect, this was the next coming and could potentially, with the ceiling, potentially be the next best player in the NHL to overthrow Sidney Crosby. And that player was Conor Mcdavid. Conor McDavid had been talked about since he was 14, 15 years old, for about 3 or 4 years before his draft, talked about as the next great hockey player in the modern NHL era. And this was his draft, to go down to Florida and get selected first overall. And the Buffalo Sabres did everything in their powers to be the worst team in the NHL, tanking in order to draft that next player that they could build the Buffalo Sabres organization around. Now, things didn't necessarily work out perfectly, and that is part of the context. So we're going through story time here. So with everything going in Buffalo, they're trading away all their players, this and that. We're going to head not too far away from Buffalo. We're going to head to Boston. Meanwhile, Don Sweeney, his first couple of trades on the job in Boston, he was the assistant GM to Peter Chiarelli before he left the organization to go up to Edmonton. Don Sweeney made some interesting moves that year, that summer. And it started off with some massive moves and some small moves as well. They traded out Carl Soderberg to the Colorado Avalanche. They traded out Riley Smith, Mark Savard. They traded out a bunch of guys in the organization. They traded out Frank Vatrano, sending him to the Florida Panthers. He's still there today. But that summer in 2015, like I said, Riley Smith, Mark Savard, Carl Soderberg were the three lesser names that were traded out. But they also made some pretty massive moves. One including a deal with the Los Angeles Kings and the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames deal, the Boston Bruins trade Dougie Hamilton to the Calgary Flames for a 2015 first-round pick, a 2015 second-round pick, and another 2015 second-round pick. So all 2015 draft picks, a first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks to the Boston Bruins for Calgary Flames' new defenseman, Dougie Hamilton. You may be saying, what does this have to do with the draft? I'm getting there. This gets good, guys. Get your popcorn ready. We're going to have a good one here. Sour Patch, whatever's your thing. That very same day, Don Sweeney made another massive trade. Milan Lucic would not be re-signing with the Boston Bruins. He was a pending UFA in the summer of 2016, and Don Sweeney got his hands. He needed some cap space. He moved out Milan Lucic, sending him out to California to the Los Angeles Kings for a 2015 first-round pick. So that's 2 first-round picks for the Boston Bruins in 2015. Defenseman Colin Miller, who was a very promising young defenseman coming out of Boston, but there were some questions about where he was going to fit in with the Bruins system. And goaltender Martin Jones. This is where things continue to get spicy. Just a couple of days later, the Boston Bruins sent Martin Jones back to the West Coast. 4 days after bringing him into Boston, Martin Jones was sent back out to California to be the next starting goaltender, taking over Antti Niemi for the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks sent over Sean Corrali and a 2016 first-round pick for Martin Jones. So you look at the context here, what the Bruins have acquired. So they have 2 first-round picks in 2015, 2 second-round picks in 2015, a first-round pick in 2016, Colin Miller, and Sean Corrali. And they've traded out some big-name players in the locker room. Like I said, Carl Soderberg, Dougie Hamilton, Milan Lucic, Riley Smith, and Mark Savard. And Riley Smith was a part of the Tyler Seguin trade just a few seasons prior. So, now I've laid the stage for you. So the Bruins are selling off this summer. They're getting rid of their big contracts. They're bringing in a bunch of draft picks. The Buffalo Sabres kind of doing the same thing, doing everything they can to get the first overall pick. So now comes draft lottery for the 2015 draft. And everybody was making the jokes, but they didn't actually think it was real. They didn't think it would happen. The Edmonton Oilers, with the 4th or 5th best odds that year of winning the draft lottery, the Edmonton Oilers, for the, I think, 10th time in 50,000, the 10th time in 11 years, it felt like, the Edmonton Oilers have the first overall pick, and they are going to get that next franchise player in the modern NHL. The next Wayne Gretzky going to the Edmonton Oilers. That was a lot of praise and a lot of excitement out of Edmonton, knowing that all their former first-round picks, like Taylor Hall, Nail Yakupov, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jordan Eberle, all top 5 draft picks, a lot of them first overall picks for that matter. This was the year for the Oilers. They got their guy, Conor McDavid, down in Florida with the first overall pick. Now, meanwhile, the Buffalo Sabres got a pretty nice consolation prize. In any other year where there's no Conor McDavid in the draft, the second overall pick from Boston University, Jack Eichel, goes second overall to the Buffalo Sabres. The next American boy playing in a very devoted, passionate American market. It seems like a perfect fit in the city of Buffalo with the second overall pick. Well, things didn't really work, as we all know. But the third overall pick in that draft ended up being the Arizona Coyotes, who would draft Dylan Strohm, who played alongside Conor McDavid with the Erie Otters of the OHL. So McDavid, Eichel, and Strohm. That's your top 3 with the Oilers, the Sabres, and the Coyotes with those draft picks. Going over Dylan Strohm, who was the third overall pick in this draft, he would only play 7 games as a member of the Arizona Coyotes through 2 or 3 seasons before inevitably getting sent to the Chicago Blackhawks in a trade where he is still on the trade block in Chicago and has been for really the past year. So that's the latest on Dylan Strohm. Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the 4th overall pick. He's done quite well there. We know how that went. Noah Hanafin, 5th overall to the Carolina Hurricanes. The first defenseman taken in this draft, a puck-moving, offensive-minded defenseman with a quick release on the back end and a great skater. That's why he was selected 5th overall. New Jersey would select the big power forward from the OHL in Kingston. The Kingston Frontenacs, Pavel Zacha, went to the Devils to round out the top 6. The big Western Hockey League big Western Canadian boy, Ivan Provorov of the Philadelphia Flyers, gets drafted there by then Philadelphia Flyers general manager Ron Hextall. Zach Rorenski goes 8th overall to Columbus. Timo Meyer, another power forward here in the top 10, goes to San Jose. And Mikko Rantanen from Russia, he comes over to play for the Colorado Avalanche. Now, this is where things go off the rails. So you may be wondering, okay, so what does this have to do with what you said about the Bruins? We're getting there. We are getting there, guys. Hold on. At number 11, Lawson Krause goes to the Florida Panthers. Dennis Guriano goes number 12 to the Dallas Stars. Jakob Zaboro. Okay, so this is where we hold up. So we're 12 picks in, right? The next 3 draft picks, and I'm completely dead serious with you guys, and I don't think I'm understating this. These next 3 draft picks, you talk about what does one draft pick mean? How much does it mean? This is what it means right here. Right here. Picks number 13, 14, and 15, all from the Boston Bruins. That is how the Boston Bruins got 3 consecutive draft picks in the 2015 NHL Draft. Like I said earlier in the video, they got it from the Calgary Flames in the Dougie Hamilton trade, and they also got the LA Kings first-round pick from the LA Kings for Milan Lucic. There are your 3 consecutive first-round picks. You may be asking, Kevin, who did they select with those 3 draft picks in a row? In that draft, they could have got some really good players, right? What did they get? The 13th overall pick. No disrespect to this player, Jakob Zaboro was the LA Kings draft pick. He is the member of the Boston Bruins. The Bruins take the big, beefy defenseman in Jakob Zaboro. A lot of talk about this Czech defenseman. Was a little bit underscouted, and that was some of the concern. Why did they take Jakob Zaboro? What did they see from him that other scouts weren't? Because he wasn't supposed to be a top 15 draft pick. A lot of head scratchers on that one. At number 14, they take Jake Debrusk from Edmonton, Alberta. There was some hype around him in the Western Hockey League, but nothing crazy. They select him to be the next guy in the top 6, as they had lost a couple of top 6 forwards, right? This is where they lost some big name guys, and they had to replace them in their forward group, and they felt that Jake Debrusk could be that guy. If you've known anything about recent NHL history, you know how things are going with that, and I'll get to that later in the video. So, okay, Kevin, stop it. So, at 15, they had to have taken Pasternak or McAvoy or, what are we getting here? We got to get something here, right? The best of all 3 of them, Zach Senyshyn, was the guy from the Calgary Flames draft pick for Dougie Hamilton. So, Jakob Zaboro, Jake Debrusk, and Zach Senyshyn are the 3 players the Bruins drafted in that trade with Milan Lucic, who was a leader on that team, a big part of that 2011 run. Dougie Hamilton, a promising potential top pairing defenseman in the NHL. We'll get to him later on. And this is what you get in return for that. So let's finish out from 16 to 30. So, if I'm a Bruins fan right now, you might want to get, any fans right here, you might want to get the kids out of the room. This video might get flagged on YouTube because of the next 3 draft picks just shows how badly the Bruins messed up. They messed up. They messed up really, really bad. So 13, 14, and 14. 13, 14, 15. 13 is Zaboro. 14 is Senyshyn. 14 is Debrusk, 15 is Senyshyn. The next 3 draft picks, I kid you not. Number 16, the Tampa Bay Lightning the Oilers have the draft pick. What do the Oilers do? Well, they're thinking, all right, Peter Chiarelli's coming in. Peter Chiarelli trades his 16th overall draft pick to the New York Islanders for former WHL Defenseman of the Year, Edmonton Oil Kings prospect Griffin Reinhardt. Now, if you guys know where Griffin Reinhardt is, we'll get to that later. The Islanders traded 1-for-1 Griffin Reinhardt for the 16th overall draft pick. Okay. There you go. So the Oil Kings, the former Edmonton Oil Kings defenseman, comes back to Alberta, back in Edmonton where he played junior hockey. And the Islanders get the 16th overall pick. You won't believe who was drafted 16th overall in this draft and who the Islanders got for Griffin frickin' Reinhardt. Who, you may ask? Matt Barzel of the New York Islanders was selected 16th overall in this draft. Let me just sit there for a sec. We talk about the Bruins being the big loser of this whole situation at this draft. The Oilers did pretty damn bad, too. They did not do well here. So, I figured I'd put the emphasis on that because that right there shows you just how bad they messed up. Ooh, it's even better, guys. So the Islanders not only got that 16th overall draft pick for Griffin Reinhardt, they also got the second round pick from the Oilers. They got that pick and a second round pick in that same draft for Griffin frickin' Reinhardt. Okay, so that's 16. So Bruins fans, you guys had 3 picks right before that. Why didn't you take Barzel? Okay. 17, the Winnipeg Jets step up to the podium. Kevin Cheveldayoff, Paul Maurice, and they select winger Kyle Connor. We'll get to that later too. Okay, so who's the third pick? All right, this can't possibly get any worse. The Ottawa Senators select defenseman Thomas Shabbat. These are the 3 consecutive picks after the Boston Bruins draft picks. All right, so let's round out the rest of this. So 19, we have Evgeny Svechnikov of the Detroit Red Wings, Joel Erickson Eck of the Minnesota Wild. He's a pretty damn good player. I don't know if Bill Guerin's trading him for Jake Debrosk or Zaboro or Senyshyn or all 3 of them together. Oof. 21, Colin White goes to the Ottawa. Colin White goes to the Ottawa Senators. Ilya Samsonov, the first goaltender selected in this draft class, the Russian goaltender, goes to the Washington Capitals. He's been pretty good in Washington. Brock Besser of the Vancouver Canucks. Travis Konechny of the Philadelphia Flyers. That pick was traded to the Flyers from the Nashville Predators. The 25th overall pick, it was the St. Louis Blues draft pick that they sent to the Buffalo Sabres, and the Buffalo Sabres traded it to the Winnipeg Jets for centerman Jack Roslovic. The 26th pick, the Montreal Canadiens take a defenseman. They take Noah Jewelson. The 27th pick, Brendan Larson? I forgot his name. Shows you how good he is. Of the Anaheim Ducks. Johan Larsson. Thank you. Johan Larsson goes to the Anaheim Ducks at 27. The Islanders make another trade to pick up another draft pick late in the draft. This was the New York Rangers draft pick they sent to the Tampa Bay Lightning in that Ryan Callahan trade back in 2015 at the deadline. The Islanders trade for that pick from Tampa Bay to acquire French forward Anthony Beauvillier at number 28. Gabriel Carlson goes to the Columbus Blue Jackets. This pick was dealt all over the place. Originally a Tampa draft pick that was traded to the Flyers, that was traded to the Leafs, and the Leafs traded that pick to the Blue Jackets for Gabriel Carlson, the defenseman. And to round out this draft, the Arizona Coyotes select again with the 30th pick to round out the draft, picking up centerman Nick Merkley from the WHL's Kelowna Rockets. Okay, so we've gone through the draft. Now let's go after the draft day. So all this stuff was made. I'm going to give you guys all this throughout the video. Now let's go back and rerun through this. So Conor McDavid, where are these players today? What happened? What is the context of what happened on that 2015 NHL draft floor? Conor McDavid is with the Edmonton Oilers. He is the best player in the NHL right now in 2022. Probably for the pretty near future until one of these guys like Connor Bedard or Shane Wright come in. It seems to be Conor McDavid's spot right now. The second overall pick, you guys are going to see throughout the video, the names in red are guys that have been drafted by that team and are no longer with that draft team. And all the guys in this draft were traded in red. So the second overall pick, Buffalo Sabres, next heir to the throne, the next American great, Jack Eichel from Boston University, at the late part of 2021, is sent to the Vegas Golden Knights and is no longer a member of the Buffalo Sabres organization. Jack Eichel will be playing his first game in Vegas here in the next couple of months. The third overall pick, Dylan Strohm of the Arizona Coyotes, had only played 7 games in his tenure as a member of the Coyotes. In 3 years after his draft, he was inevitably dealt to the Chicago Blackhawks, where he is today, and will never probably be that top 6 player he was supposed to be. So, there you go. Your top 3 picks, it's McDavid and 2 guys that have been traded out of their organization. Eichel's been good. It's no discredit to Eichel, but he has been traded. And Dylan Strohm is officially here in 2022, 7 years after this draft. We can safely say he is a bust. He is on the trade block in Chicago, and nobody wants him. And number 4, the Maple Leafs. Hey, Mitch Marner's been a really good player. He's had his ups and downs in Toronto, but the kid from Toronto stays in Toronto. And he signed a nice deal. He'll be there for the next couple of years. The Leafs haven't won a cup yet, but he has been a good player. At number 5, this is the third guy here in our top 5 that has been dealt. The Carolina Hurricanes inevitably dealt that defenseman, Noah Hanafin. They traded him just a few seasons later. He is no longer a part of the Carolina Hurricanes organization, as he was traded to the Calgary Flames, where he is today. He is still a member of the Flames, but there is still talk that he is on the trade block and is not necessarily safe in Calgary, as he was never the guy that the Calgary Flames were hoping that he could be as an NHL player. Trying to find the trade here for you guys. I can't seem to find it. Come on. Let's see. Carolina. Let's go to Calgary. We'll just do that. Brad Treliving. Brad Treliving made that trade, or Treliving, whatever you want to call him. I can't find it. Did I just pass it? I think I passed it. Yeah, I did pass it. Okay. I apologize for that, guys. I can't find this. Oh, here it is. So, in the summer of 2018, Noah Hanafin and Elias Lindholm were traded from the Carolina Hurricanes to the Calgary Flames for Dougie Hamilton. You heard that name before, right? Michael Furland and defenseman Adam Fox, who is now a member of the New York Rangers. So, in a sense, Noah Hanafin, who was the 5th overall pick in this draft, somehow still gets involved with that guy Dougie Hamilton we talked about. And Dougie Hamilton was traded, right, to the Calgary Flames. Things didn't work out in Calgary. He ended up getting sent to the Carolina Hurricanes, spent a few seasons in Carolina, and in 2021 made his big payday, signing a massive contract for the next 8 years as a member of the New Jersey Devils on the back end. He has cashed in his chips, and he is one of the biggest paid defensemen, the biggest paid player in the 2021 free agency class, but he has cashed in. So that is Dougie Hamilton, and that is kind of how the story circumvents back to that. Going to, where do we leave off? Okay, so the 5th overall pick. At number 6, Pavel Zacha has not been the guy that the Devils had hoped for, but here in 2020, he kind of showed what he can do, and he continued that in 2021. A pretty hopeful future as a top 6 power forward center winger for a guy like Pavel Zacha. Maybe not 6th overall pick material, but still a really talented prospect. The 7th overall pick, that kid Ivan Provorov, is leading the Philadelphia Flyers defense and is their best defenseman by a long shot. Number 9 is the backbone of the Flyers defense. That was a good pick by the Flyers. Number 8, Zach Werenski went to the Blue Jackets. He is still a member of the Blue Jackets. He just signed a big 8-year extension to stay in Columbus, and he will be there for the foreseeable future. His defensive partner, Seth Jones, is no longer there, but Zach Werenski sticks around. At number 9, Timo Meyer seems like a guy that is on his way out of San Jose. They're kind of running out of cap space. It's not to the fault of the player or the team. They just don't have the cap space. Timo Meyer has been a great player in San Jose. And at number 9 in that draft, looks like a pretty good pick for the Sharks. Same thing at number 10. We're not really seeing anything different here. Colorado selected Mikko Rantanen. He has been nothing but great, and a great part of that top line between Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, and Nathan MacKinnon. He is on one of the best first lines in the NHL in 2022. Mikko Rantanen was a steal at number 10 in that draft. The biggest bust of this draft, you could argue, at least for the 11th overall pick, the Florida Panthers, Lawson Crouse. He never played a game. He is the only player on this list to never play a game with the team that drafted him in the first round. Lawson Crouse inevitably got traded out of Florida, and he became a member of the Arizona Coyotes. He is a bottom 6 player in Arizona, a serviceable player. He's a big player. He lays those highlight reel hits in Arizona, but he's still on the Arizona Coyotes, and he's never going to be that guy again with the 11th overall pick. Now we move on to number 12. Dennis Guriano, another happy story here. Unlike the 11th pick's fate. Dennis Guriano is still a member of the Dallas Stars and a really talented player, in fact. A guy that really has been a good piece on that team, a top 6 forward in Dallas, and he scores goals. What more could you ask of your 12th overall pick? And now we get to the famous 13, 14, and 15 draft picks. Jakob Zaboro was the first player on that list for Boston, and the first pick for Don Sweeney as general manager of the Boston Bruins. Jakob Zaboro is still a member of the Bruins defense. The things that made him great in that draft class, and the reason he was selected 13th overall, this big, beefy, huge thighs and legs monster of a defenseman, Jakob Zaboro from the Czech League, inevitably is his failure as well and his downside. Jakob Zaboro has not been able to stay healthy. He's taken some really big hits. He's an aggressive player. And what happens with those guys, they usually don't last long in the NHL. Again, really talented player. He fits the Bruins' identity, which they talked about through that Peter Chiarelli era. Yet, if you look back at that culture of the Boston Bruins, they would still have Phil Kessel, Joe Thornton, Tyler Seguin, and some names that they didn't draft in this class. They fell victim to that championship in 2011 that you can win with the big Boston Bruins. The game was changing right before their very eyes after that, and they didn't adapt. And that's why they selected Zaboro at 13. At number 14, where is Jake Debrusk? Well, at the moment of this video, Jake Debrusk is still a member of the Boston Bruins. And he's not a terribly bad player. He's the best, I would say, of these three. You could argue Zaboro, but I think Jake Debrusk, in terms of his value, is the best of these three guys. He's a pending UFA here in the summer of 2022, and if you're watching this in the future, you will know the fate of him moving forward. But Jake Debrusk has asked for a trade here at the end of 2021. He does want out of Boston. It seems like by the trade deadline here of 2022, Jake Debrusk will be out of Boston, another victim of this 2015 draft class. And to top it all off, the 15th overall pick by the Bruins in this draft class, these three consecutive picks, my goodness, the Calgary Flames draft pick. He played 14 games as a member of the Boston Bruins at this point, has spent all of his 7 seasons with the Providence Bruins developing. He too, just like Jake Debrusk, has asked for a trade out of Boston by the end of 2021. He thinks he's ready for the NHL. The Bruins aren't ready for him. And let's be honest, they have more depth that's better than Zach Senyshyn at this point. He seems like another victim of the 2015 draft class from Don Sweeney. And now we get to the stuff that if Bruins fans aren't crying at this point, Oilers fans or Bruins fans should be crying by this point. The 16th overall pick, the Islanders pick, Matt Barzel. Matt Barzel ended up being the rookie of the season in his first NHL season with the Islanders. His first stint under Garth Snow didn't work so well, but his first full season, he won the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year in 2018, just a few seasons after. The runner-up is a guy we'll talk about after in Vancouver. But Matt Barzel is a stud and the face of the New York Islanders franchise since the absence of John Tavares leaving. The Islanders have won to this Eastern Conference Final 2 consecutive seasons and been one of the best defensive teams under a new coaching staff, a new general manager in Lou Lamoriello. Well, how did things work out for the Oilers, right? Well, it didn't work out so well. Griffin Reinhardt was not the player that the Oilers were hoping for in his time, in his hype, when he was the 6th overall pick by the Islanders in the 2011 NHL Draft, or just a few seasons prior draft. He never turned out. He never turned into even a top 4 defenseman, let alone, anything at all. They really expected him to be a top pairing guy. I had a lot of faith in Griffin Reinhardt. I was disappointed when the Islanders traded Griffin Reinhardt to take that 16th pick. Looking back now, Garth Snow, thanking my lucky stars that I wasn't the GM of the Islanders at that point, because I too probably would have taken Griffin Reinhardt with all the hype around him at that time. And the Islanders also got the 2nd round pick in that draft. Oilers fans, you still sticking around? Like, seriously, if you are, like, I'll give you a lot of credit, because at this point, probably crying, because this is just insanity. And I want to know who the Islanders took with that 2nd round pick. Let's do that, shall we? So the Islanders with the Oilers pick. Let's see, what did the Islanders get with that draft pick? So the Islanders, it doesn't look like the Islanders kept that pick. They didn't. That ended up being the pick the Islanders would trade later on to take Anthony Beauvillier. They traded that pick to the Tampa Bay Lightning, which was the Rangers draft pick. We'll get there. But that ended up being Matthew Spencer. So I guess the Oilers can say they at least didn't lose out that much. Now the thing is, Daniel Sprong, Philip Chlapik, Rupe Hintz, Jordan Greenway were taken a little bit later in that draft. Rasmus Anderson of Calgary. Ooh. That would have been a good pick for the Bruins, right? Or the Oilers, for that matter. And now he's at their rival in Calgary. And what's interesting, the Oilers, that pick was originally the Pittsburgh Penguins pick. The Penguins could have gotten Matt Barzel. How interesting would that have been, right? With Malkin, Crosby, and Matt Barzel. Very interesting, right? So we're done with that one. That one I had to explore, but we're done with that now. At 17... Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets, he's been a really good player. He might win MVP of the year here in 2022. He has been that good for the Winnipeg Jets. Another missed opportunity there, a missed swing. The Bruins had 3 strikes, and they pretty much struck out on all 3. And the following 3 hitters, they were all home runs. Now, end that top 3 right after the Bruins picks. Thomas Shabbat of the Ottawa Senators. He is currently the assistant captain of the Ottawa Senators. Almost won the captaincy role had it not been for Brady Tkachuk. Thomas Shabbat is a great defenseman and is in the conversation to win the Norris Trophy here in 2022. If that makes you feel any better there, Bruins fans. Those were the 3 preceding picks after your guys. Again, the Bruins were so focused on being the big bad Bruins. This is what you get for that. It went the way of the dinosaur, and then things continue. Evgeny Svechnikov of the Red Wings, he is no longer with the organization. He never really stuck. He played 20 games for 2 seasons, spent a couple games his first season, but he is now a member of the Winnipeg Jets, playing with the Jets in a bottom 6 role, and not really that great player they were hoping there that they were getting with that pick. At 20th overall, Joel Erickson Eck is a leader of the Minnesota Wild, and is primed to potentially, depending on how things go with Jared Spurgeon, Joel Erickson Eck could be the next captain of the Minnesota Wild. He just cashed in on a huge, big-ticket contract in 2021. And again, he seems to be the next heir to the throne of the next Mikko Koivu in Minnesota. Again, Oilers and Bruins fans probably scratching their heads about that. The 21st pick, Colin White, is a top 6 center in the Ottawa Senators organization. And that was a pick that the Islanders had from the Bruins in the Thomas Vanek trade, or the Molson Vanek trade, whatever. But Colin White ended up going to Ottawa and has been a pretty good player. So you could say, there you go. If you have some vindication, the Islanders didn't completely win in this situation. They gave up a pretty good player in Colin White. Washington took Samsonov, like we talked about. He has been very good for the Capitals, is their current starting goaltender. Brock Boeser, we talked about that 2018 Calder Trophy. The runner-up to Matt Barzel was Brock Boeser. Had he not gotten injured, there's an argument to be made. Brock Boeser would have been very close, if not even beaten Matt Barzel for Rookie of the Year. Again, this is all picks after the infamous 3 picks from the Bruins earlier on. 24th, Travis Konechny of the Flyers. He has been very good. Jack Roslovic from the Winnipeg Jets. He has since been traded, as you guys see in red. He is now with the Blue Jackets back in his hometown in Ohio. Noah Jewelson has only played in 44 NHL games. He has been with the Laval Rocket and most recently is a member of the Florida Panthers. He was placed on waivers by the Montreal Canadiens in 2020 and has since been a member of the Florida Panthers. The 27th pick, Johan Larsson, you guys saw earlier. I completely forgot his name. That is how insignificant he has been for the Ducks. But he is still on the Anaheim Ducks roster depth chart. But he is not a prominent player, again, considering he was a first-round pick. The 28th pick, Anthony Beauvillier, was selected by the Islanders. This was this was the big part of the Ryan Callahan trade back in 2015. The New York Rangers had gotten rid of their captain, sending him to Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Lightning would take that pick and send it to the Islanders for some depth draft picks, which included Matthew Spencer. The Islanders' Anthony Beauvillier has been a really talented player, but more of a middle six guy in the NHL and has pretty much lived up to the expectations of when he was drafted. Gabriel Carlson has been a name in the NHL. He's played 52 games with the Columbus Blue Jackets organization. This is the pick that was moved like a hot potato. This pick was in 4 different organizations at a time. It was the Flyers. It was the Tampa Bay Lightning's pick originally, the Flyers pick. It was also the Leafs pick, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, who inevitably drafted him at 29th overall. The Arizona Coyotes' Nick Merkley. This was the Chicago Blackhawks pick. Again, 2015, it was the Stanley Cup final between the Bolts and the Blackhawks. That pick ended up going to Arizona. Neither of the Coyotes draft picks in this class, the 3rd overall pick and 30th overall pick, neither of them are in the organization at this point. Nick Merkley is a member of the San Jose Sharks right now in the bottom 6. He was traded to the New Jersey Devils as a part of that big trade with Taylor Hall a few years back, and eventually got moved back to the West Coast in a deal with the Sharks where we saw Nick Merkley play alongside his quote-unquote brother, Ryan Merkley. There's no correlation. They aren't siblings or relatives by any means. But Ryan Merkley would now play with Nick Merkley in San Jose. And he would only play 1 game in the NHL with the Coyotes. So you're looking at a theme here. You're looking at some of the teams that really missed on this draft. Now, the big winners, obviously the Oilers with the 1st overall pick. No doubts. The Buffalo Sabres are in shambles. They just traded away Jack Eichel, right? Dylan Strohm, that was the Coyotes' 3rd overall pick, and he played 7 games for the team. That's a huge, huge miss. And you look at some of these things, it is incredible. This was a very long video. This is a video that is well overdue. I've talked about this in videos really for the past year, but I thought it was time to do a full deep dive look at this draft class because I've been sitting here for almost 40 minutes now. There is so much more to this draft. If you go through rounds 2 to 7, you could do a day worth of video on this very draft class, and I thought it was fitting that we talk about it today because you could just see how these teams have kind of come into their own. The Oilers are holding up because of McDavid, right? Buffalo in shambles. Arizona with their 2 first-round picks, they really missed out there. And Boston is the infamous loser because they had 3 draft picks in a row. And again, all 3 of those guys here in the start of 2022 are on the roster, but 2 of them at the end of 2021 have asked for a trade out of Boston. And again, you look at not only the 3 picks after, but you look at the picks after Zaboro, Debrosk, and Senyshyn. some of the big names here: Barzel, Connor, Shabbat, Joel Erickson Eck, Colin White, Ilya Samsonov, Brock Besser, Travis Konechny, Jack Roslovic, Anthony Beauvillier. They were all better players than those three guys. There were so many ways literally, there was a huge amount of targets. There wasn't just one target. It's not like the Bruins just missed out on one guy. They had 3 shots, gun-loaded 3 shots, and they hit the air. And if it's possible, they probably missed the air. That's how bad this worked for the Bruins. And they're paying for it now. Now, what is the fallout from all this? Peter Chiarelli lost his job. That was one of his first big moves, bringing in Griffin Reinhardt from basically Matt Barzal and that second draft pick, which inevitably came Anthony Beauvillier for the Islanders. They basically gave up Barzal and Beauvillier for Griffin Reinhardt. He ended up going to Vegas, and he has never turned into anything. And again, you just look at how this landscape of the NHL, a lot of it goes back to the 2015 NHL draft. That is it for my TED Talk today, guys. This draft was incredible, and I've been waiting to do this one. I finally had the time to do it. I made the time to do it because this is just so interesting how everything kind of unfolded. So, officially, that is it for today's video. If you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see more NHL draft history videos like this, let me know in the comment section down below what you think. If you guys like what we're doing, guys, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm out of oxygen. I need to get on an oxygen tank after this video because I'm sweating. I'm hot. It's hot in here. That is it. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.